Judea, a land of faith, tradition and turmoil. For decades this province stood under Roman dominion, its people caught between their ancient identity and the demands of an empire. In the mid-1st century AD, tensions reached a breaking point, leading to arguably the most violent revolt in history and a sequence of events that would shake the very foundations of the known world. Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist bring judgment on themselves. Romans 13, 1-2. Since the conquest of Judea by Pompey Magnus in 63 BC, Roman rule had been a constant source of tension. Taxes were imposed, governors appointed, and Judean autonomy eroded. While Rome tolerated local customs, its presence was a heavy burden upon the people of the land. Taxation weighed heavily upon the people, enriching the Roman administration while impoverishing the common citizen. The resentment grew, leading to scattered revolts and messianic hopes of liberation. Judean society was already deeply divided. The Sadducees, the priestly elite, sought compromise with Rome, ensuring stability. The Pharisees, guardians of the law, promoted religious purity and awaited divine intervention. The Zealots, however, refused submission, believing that armed resistance was the only path to freedom. Beyond the city, the Essenes withdrew into the wilderness, believing the end of days was near. Their writings, preserved for centuries in desert caves, warned of a great battle between the forces of light and darkness. To many, Rome was the great oppressor, the enemy of God's people. At the heart of Jewish life stood the temple, a symbol of faith, national identity, and divine presence. Rising above Jerusalem, its grandeur was unparalleled. This was the Second Temple, extensively rebuilt and expanded under Herod the Great to become one of the most magnificent structures of the ancient world. Its outer courts sprawled across a vast plateau, enclosed by towering colonnades. The walls gleamed with imported white limestone, polished to a dazzling sheen. Gold-plated doors reflected the morning sun, bathing the city in radiant light. So impressive was its beauty that some considered it among the wonders of the world. Inside, the court of the Gentiles welcomed pilgrims from across the empire, while beyond lay the sacred inner courts, restricted to the Jews. Here, the priests performed their daily sacrifices, the air thick with the scent of burning incense and offerings. At its heart stood the Holy of Holies, a chamber so sacred that only the high priest could enter, and only once a year. on Yom Kippur to seek atonement for the nation. 3 times a year during Passover, Shavuot and Sukkot, thousands flocked to Jerusalem, filling the temple courts with song and devotion. It was the centre of Jewish religious life, but also a place of political tension. Roman authorities kept a watchful eye, fearing that any gathering could ignite unrest. Previous governors had provoked trouble among the Jews. Pontius Pilate's attempt to bring imperial standards into the city led to fierce protests. Later, the Emperor Caligula's decree to install his statue within the temple nearly sparked outright war. By 64 AD, Judea's governors had become increasingly corrupt, none more so than Gessius Florus. His greed and cruelty knew no bounds. In AD 66, he seized funds from the temple treasury, claiming them for Rome. This blatant act of sacrilege was the final insult. The people could bear no more. Outrage erupted into rebellion. Zealots stormed Roman strongholds, massacring troops and seizing control of Jerusalem. For the first time in over a century, Judea was free, but their defiance would not go unanswered. The Jews' triumph was indeed short-lived. Rome would not tolerate rebellion. Governor Cestius Gallus prepared his legions to reclaim the city, setting the stage for a brutal campaign that would shake the empire. The war for Judea had begun.